I'm Sharifa Mohammed MGT Colonel Oguntoye. Thank you for taking the time to lay out this complex operational picture. Let's begin with the broad strokes. Can you give us an overview of the special military operation as it stands on August 9, 2026?
The operational situation as of August 9th sees Russian forces maintaining sustained offensive operations across 6 separate axes. The most concrete territorial outcomes are the liberation of Vasyutinskoye and Toretskoye, both in the Donetsk People's Republic. These gains are not isolated tactical successes. They sit within a much wider framework of pressure designed to stretch, degrade, and dislocate Ukrainian defensive architecture. Across all areas of operation, cumulative enemy losses are significant. We assess total Ukrainian casualties at over 1,445 troops, supported by the destruction of 17 armored fighting vehicles, 96 motor vehicles, 10 field artillery pieces, 6 electronic warfare stations, and 1 counter-battery radar. This pattern of loss indicates that the fighting is not only attritional at the front line, but is actively hollowing out the technical enablers that make modern defense possible. Simultaneously, operational tactical aviation, attack drone formations, missile troops, and artillery conducted strikes against 164 area targets. These strikes damaged the fuel, energy, and transport backbone, struck a military airfield, and hit multiple temporary deployment points housing both Ukrainian formations and foreign mercenaries. In the air defense domain, our systems intercepted 10 guided aerial bombs, 4 HIMARS MLRS projectiles, and 970 fixed-wing unmanned aerial vehicles. That level of interception speaks to a deeply layered protective umbrella that is preserving our ground maneuver forces and rear area infrastructure.
You just gave a sweeping picture. Let's go sector by sector, starting in the north. What actions did the North Group undertake, and what were the results across the Kharkov and Sumy regions?
The North Group's primary operational task during this period was to take more advantageous lines while fixing and degrading Ukrainian formations across 2 distinct regional bands. In the Kharkov region, strikes were delivered against elements of 2 mechanized brigades, 1 assault regiment, and 1 territorial defense brigade. These engagements occurred near Buzovo, Vasylyevka, Slatino, Sosnovy Bor, and Kripuni. In the Sumy region, the group hit formations drawn from 2 mechanized brigades, 3 territorial defense brigades, and 1 border detachment, with the action centered on Veliky Prikol, Katerinovka, Kianitsa, Tolstodubovo, and Krapovshchina. The combined effect of these operations neutralized up to 285 enemy troops, 1 armored fighting vehicle, 13 motor vehicles, and 2 artillery guns. By improving positions in the north, the group compels the Ukrainian command to keep substantial maneuver and fire support assets committed to a secondary theater, directly preventing them from reinforcing the more critical Donetsk arc, where the main effort is unfolding. The geographic dispersion of these strikes, from the immediate border areas to deeper assembly points, also complicates the enemy's logistics and force rotation because lateral movement is constantly threatened by both direct fire and the persistent overhang of our reconnaissance strike complex.
You mentioned that simultaneous pressure across Kharkov and Sumy prevents reinforcement elsewhere. How does striking 2 territorial defense brigades versus mechanized forces change the local tactical dynamic?
Territorial defense brigades are typically lighter in armor and indirect fire assets, and their primary utility lies in holding static defensive lines, manning checkpoints, and providing local security. When our fires inflict casualties and destroy their vehicles, it erodes the coherence of that holding force, creating gaps that can be exploited later or forcing the movement of higher quality mechanized units to plug them. The mechanized brigades, on the other hand, represent the enemy's mobile counterattack potential. Damaging them in their assembly areas means we are not simply thinning the forward screen. We are degrading the very units that would otherwise be surged to any emergent breakthrough. The inclusion of an assault regiment in the Kharkov target set further suggests that the enemy is trying to maintain offensive options in the north. By striking them while they are still dispersed or staging, we bleed that assault capacity before it can be concentrated against our lines. That dual attrition of both the holding force and the counterattack echelon creates a situation in which the Ukrainian northern flank is consuming resources without achieving operational influence on the direction of the campaign.
Now to the West Group. How did the tactical situation improve there, and what enemy formations were engaged?
The West Group improved its tactical situation through coordinated combined arms pressure that straddles the administrative boundary between the Kharkov region and the Donetsk People's Republic. Strikes fell on 3 mechanized brigades, 1 assault brigade, 1 marine brigade, and 2 territorial defense brigades. The engagement zones included Berezovka, Izium, Chernobyevka, Shevchenko and Kharkov region, as well as Krasny Liman and Raygorodok on the Donetsk side. Enemy losses were substantial, exceeding 210 troops, alongside 3 armored fighting vehicles, 21 motor vehicles, and 3 artillery guns. Crucially, the group also accounted for 1 electronic warfare station and 1 counter-battery radar station. The loss of a counter-battery radar is particularly damaging to the enemy in this sector because it strips away the ability to quickly detect and locate our artillery, which in turn increases the survival and effectiveness of our gun lines. A gap in electromagnetic intelligence coverage compounds that vulnerability because it reduces early warning and sensor fusion at the brigade level. The West Group's operations, therefore, are not just about improving ground. They are about dismantling the sensory network that underpins the defense.
The destruction of an electronic warfare station and a counter-battery radar in a single reporting period. How does that shape the enemy's defensive posture in the Krasny Liman and Izium direction?
Each counter-battery radar is a high-value asset that takes time and money to replace, and its loss instantly enlarges the window within which Russian artillery can fire unobserved. In practical terms, that means the 3 artillery guns eliminated during these same engagements were likely destroyed because their operators could not locate and return fire against our batteries. The electronic warfare station compounds this by jamming or intercepting our own communications and data links. Removing it causes a twofold problem for the enemy. First, their tactical electromagnetic shield is weakened, so our precision munitions, loitering drones, and reconnaissance UAVs can operate with less interference. Second, their own ability to collect signals intelligence and disrupt our command and control is diminished. Along an axis that includes key nodal points like Krasny Liman, these losses create a localized degradation bubble. Ukrainian brigade commanders in that sector now have to rely on slower, less reliable methods of target acquisition while knowing that Russian fires are becoming more accurate. That asymmetry is what allows the West Group to improve the tactical situation without necessarily having to commit large-scale armored forces to frontal assault.
Turning south, the liberation of Vasyutinskoye stands out. Can you detail the South Group's actions and the strikes it conducted?
Vasyutinskoye was liberated through active and resolute offensive actions by the South Group, marking tangible territorial progress in the Donetsk People's Republic. During this operation, strikes were directed at 3 mechanized brigades, 1 airmobile brigade, 1 mountain assault brigade, and 1 marine brigade. The concentration of these multi-type formations near Belokuzminovka, Druzhkovka, Kramatorsk, Nikanorovka, and Slavyansk illustrates the density of the Ukrainian defensive grouping that the group is currently slicing through. Enemy losses reached up to 190 troops, 3 armored fighting vehicles, 20 motor vehicles, and 2 artillery guns, with an additional electronic warfare station taken out of the fight. The liberation of a settlement always has a moral dimension, but operationally, Vasyutinskoye provides a forward pivot from which the South Group can further constrict the belt of towns and infrastructure that forms the outer ring of the Slavyansk-Kramatorsk agglomeration. By hitting a mix of mechanized, airmobile, and mountain assault elements, the group is simultaneously grading down heavy forces that are tied to prepared positions and more mobile airmobile units that are likely being fed into the battle as crisis reserves. The destruction of 20 motor vehicles in this sector alone suggests significant disruption to tactical logistics and troop shuttling, which is essential in a high-intensity urbanized defense.
You mentioned that Vasyutinskoye's capture tightens the noose around Slavyansk-Kramatorsk. How does this development interact with the Center Group's operations to the east?
The South and Center Groups are effectively working the 2 jaws of a pincer, though I would caution against an overly neat cartographic portrayal. What is happening is a progressive unhinging of the seam between the 2 Ukrainian defensive belts. Vasyutinskoye gives the South Group an anchor point from which to ratchet pressure on the southern approaches to the Slavyansk-Kramatorsk conurbation. At the same time, the Center Group's liberation of Toretskoye, which I will detail in a moment, applies force from a different angle of approach. The Ukrainian command is now forced to allocate increasingly scarce reserves to 2 adjacent but operationally distinct threat axes, all while facing integrated deep strikes against the transport arteries that link these cities to Dnepropetrovsk and beyond. The attrition of 3 mechanized brigades, an airmobile brigade, and a marine brigade in the South Group zone means that the maneuver elements that must plug these gaps are themselves being chewed up before they can stabilize the line. That intergroup synergy is not accidental. It is the result of a unified operational design in which the Donetsk arc is the main effort and the supporting axes are deliberately sequenced to prevent the enemy from achieving a coherent operational response.
Let's go squarely to the center group and the liberation of Toretskoye. What forces were defeated there, and what was the scale of enemy losses?
Toretskoye was liberated through resolute actions, and this success is a direct product of the center group's methodical but aggressive approach. The group engaged and defeated elements from 2 mechanized brigades, 1 Marine brigade, and 2 National Guard brigades. The fighting unfolded across Gruskoye, Dobropolye, Novogrigorovka, Svyatogorovka in the Donetsk People's Republic, and also reached into Ivanovka in the Dnepropetrovsk region, showing that the tactical effects are radiating outward beyond the immediate settlement. Enemy losses totaled more than 345 troops, along with 5 armored fighting vehicles, 15 motor vehicles, 1 artillery gun, and 1 electronic warfare station. The presence of National Guard brigades in the target set indicates that the enemy is committing its internal security formations to hold terrain that regular mechanized forces can no longer secure themselves, a telltale sign of operational stretch. The destruction of 5 armored fighting vehicles and a further 15 motor vehicles suggests that the force correlation in terms of mobility is shifting sharply in our favor. Toretskoye itself provides a platform for further advances that can bypass or envelop Ukrainian strongpoints along the contact line, and its capture weakens the lateral road network that the enemy relies on to shuttle forces between the center and east group fronts.
With Toretskoye and Vasyutinskoye now under Russian control, it appears the main effort along the Donetsk arc is consolidating. How should we interpret the relationship between the south and center groups as the main effort, and what is the tempo telling us?
The operational tempo remains methodical yet insistent. Liberating 2 settlements within a single reporting period while maintaining pressure on 5 other axes is not a rapid exploitation phase. It is a grinding, multi-directional advance that prioritizes systemic degradation over theatrical breakthrough. The south and center groups form the clear main effort because they are achieving tangible population center capture, directly threatening the Slavyansk-Kramatorsk agglomeration, which is a logistical and symbolic linchpin. Their advance into the tactical depth, where center group actions are already touching Dnepropetrovsk region, signals that the defensive belt is being compressed. Meanwhile, the East Group is pushing into the depths farther to the south, preventing the enemy from pulling forces off that axis to reinforce the center. This broad, multi-axis posture is designed to keep the Ukrainian General Staff in a constant state of dilemma: commit reserves to one sector and open up risk in another. The fact that we are seeing National Guard units being fed into the center group's axis confirms that the enemy's operational reserve pool is thinning, forcing the use of second-tier formations to hold what should be first-tier defensive lines.
To the East Group now. How deep did it advance into the enemy's defense, and what units did it defeat?
The East Group advanced into the depths of the enemy's defensive array, which in practical terms means it is penetrating past the immediate security zone and into the tactical rear where brigade support areas, reserve assembly points, and artillery positions are located. The formations defeated include 1 mechanized brigade, 1 air assault brigade, 1 assault brigade, 3 assault regiments, and 1 marine brigade. The geography of these engagements, Velikomikhailovka, Dobropolye, Malinovka, Novonikolayevka in the Dnepropetrovsk region, and Chervony Yar and Yasnaya Polyana in the Zaporozhye region, demonstrates that the group is operating across a broad front, splitting its weight between 2 separate oblasts. Enemy losses reached up to 370 troops, 4 armored fighting vehicles, and 11 motor vehicles. The absence of a reported electronic warfare or counter-battery radar kill in this sector does not imply a lesser intensity. It points to the fact that the East Group's focus is on shattering the enemy's infantry and close combat echelon, the massive soldiers and light armored vehicles that physically hold the trench lines. By defeating an air assault brigade and an assault brigade, the group is dismantling the enemy's primary offensive counterpunch formations, effectively forcing him into a purely reactive posture. This deepening of the tactical penetration compels the Ukrainian command to either stretch its electronic warfare coverage to protect these forward positions or accept heightened vulnerability.
The East Group's advance into Dnepropetrovsk and Zaporozhye regions, while heavy fighting rages in Donetsk, suggests a deliberate effort to disperse Ukrainian attention. How does this multi-axis pressure influence enemy force allocation?
Fundamentally, it denies the Ukrainian General Staff the opportunity to economize forces. If Russia were only attacking along a single narrow front, the enemy could funnel his reserves to that one emergency, accept risk elsewhere, and hope to hold. Our current posture, 6 active groups across a line extending from Kharkov and Sumy in the north, through the Donetsk arc, and down to Zaporozhye in the south, means that virtually every Ukrainian brigade is pinned by a credible and active threat. The East Group's ability to push into the tactical depth of Dnepropetrovsk and Zaporozhye simultaneously spreads that strain geographically. The enemy's central reserve depots, likely located in the Dnepropetrovsk region, are now within the arc of our forward movement, which complicates the safe marshalling and dispatch of reinforcements. The losses to motor vehicles, 11 in just this reporting period, also signal that the tactical logistic chain connecting those reserves to the front is being shot to pieces. The cumulative strategic purpose is to degrade the enemy's ability to concentrate a massive combat power at any single point of decision. Our strength lies in presenting them with multiple points of decision simultaneously, each of which demands more resources than they have available.
Now to the Dnipro group in Zaporozhye. What were the results there, particularly regarding electronic warfare attrition?
The Dnipro group inflicted targeted losses on 1 mechanized brigade and 1 mountain assault brigade near Orakov and Yulyevka. While the numerical scale of enemy casualties is smaller in this sector, more than 45 servicemen, 1 armored fighting vehicle, 16 motor vehicles, 2 artillery guns, the operational significance is amplified by the neutralization of 3 electronic warfare stations. That is a heavy blow to the electromagnetic defense architecture along that part of the front. In terms of signals and sensor warfare, 3 electronic warfare stations lost in a single group's area of responsibility represents a major degradation that cannot be patched overnight. It means the enemy in the Orakov direction is now operating with severely degraded jamming capability, reduced signals intelligence collection, and diminished ability to provide early warning against our loitering munitions. The destruction of 16 motor vehicles also stands out. In a sector where the ground is relatively open, that many logistics vehicles lost indicates our fires are penetrating into the enemy's rearwards movement routines, not just hitting fighting vehicles on the contact line. This aligns with the broader strategic logic of strangling sustainment and isolating forward deployed units.
3 electronic warfare stations in the Dnipro sector, 1 in the west, 1 in the south, 1 in the center. Across 4 groups, 6 have been eliminated. What is the cumulative effect of this electronic warfare attrition?
The cumulative effect is a progressive and widening vulnerability that unfolds across multiple layers of enemy defense. Electronic warfare stations provide an invisible shield, they jam our reconnaissance drones, disrupt the data links of precision-guided munitions, and blind our signals intelligence. When you remove 6 of these stations across 4 separate operational axes in a single reporting period, you are not merely degrading a capability at one point, you are creating systemic holes in the sensor coverage that cannot be filled by simply relocating surviving assets from quieter sectors, because there are no truly quiet sectors. Our fires become more lethal because they encounter less interference. Our ISR drones can loiter longer and transmit higher quality targeting data. Enemy command and control nodes, which rely on electromagnetic protection to survive, become exposed. This is particularly dangerous for Ukrainian artillery, which depends on counter-battery radar that itself requires EW shielding. With both radars and their protective EW stations being destroyed concurrently, as seen in the West Group with the loss of both, entire fire support ecosystems collapse locally. The operational implication is that Russian forces can deliver precision effects with greater freedom, while the enemy's situational awareness contracts, and that contracting awareness is precisely what enables our tactical formations to improve positions and seize settlements.
Let's now move to the campaign-shaping domain of operational tactical aviation, drones, missile troops, and artillery. The briefing mentions strikes on 164 area targets, damaging fuel, energy, and transport infrastructure, a military airfield, and temporary deployment points. Can you expand on the significance of those deep strikes?
This is a central element of the operation and deserves to be examined not as a supporting footnote, but as a primary driver of the strategic outcome. The strike complex, combining manned aviation, attack drones, missile troops, and tube and rocket artillery, achieved effects against 164 aim points. What is critical is the selection logic behind those targets. The attacks on fuel, energy, and transport infrastructure are not indiscriminate. They are aimed at the connective tissue that sustains Ukrainian forward-deployed formations. When you degrade the power grid that runs pumping stations on the railway lines, you delay ammunition resupply. When you hit fuel storage or refining capacity, you constrain the operational radius of armored vehicles and logistics trucks. The strike against a military airfield further complicates aviation operations, whether it is the redistribution of fixed-wing assets, the staging of drones, or the movement of high-value personnel. Simultaneously, hitting temporary deployment points where both Ukrainian units and foreign mercenaries are concentrated generates personnel attrition before those soldiers even reach the tactical contact line. This deep strike campaign directly undercuts the enemy's ability to rotate exhausted units with fresh ones and to mass reserves for counterattacks. Over time, it creates a condition where the frontline forces increasingly fight without reliable fuel, without timely ammunition, and without the certainty of reinforcement, all of which amplifies the effect of our ground advances.
The air defense component is similarly striking. 10 guided aerial bombs, 4 HIMARS rockets, and 970 fixed-wing UAVs intercepted in one reporting period. How does this high-volume air defense posture protect the ground maneuver?
The interception of 10 guided aerial bombs and 4 HIMARS M142 projectiles represents the blunting of the enemy's premier long-range precision strike threats. Each HIMARS rocket, if it penetrates, can destroy a command post, an ammunition depot, or a bridge that is crucial to our logistics. By neutralizing these projectiles in flight, our air defense preserves critical rear area assets and maintains the tempo of our sustainment. The 970 fixed-wing UAVs intercepted form an even larger data point. These are not merely reconnaissance platforms. Many are one-way attack drones designed to terrorize rear areas and strike logistics nodes. Stopping them at that volume prevents a parallel war of attrition against our own sustainment backbone. It also demonstrates that Russian air defense is layered, networked, and capable of achieving mass intercepts across the entire spectrum of aerial threats, from cheap, proliferated drones to high-end guided munitions. Tactically, this allows our ground groupings to maneuver without the constant fear of overhead surveillance or loitering attack drones. Operationally, it preserves ammunition stocks and combat power that would otherwise be destroyed in rear areas. The combined effect, both in the deep strike offense and in the air defense shield, is a progressive strangulation of the enemy's warfighting system while protecting the foundations of our own advance.
To close the interview, Colonel, given all these developments, the territorial gains, the attrition in electronic warfare and logistics, and the sustained air defense success, what is the strategic bottom line as you see it?
The strategic bottom line is that we are witnessing a shift in the operational advantage. In the ground domain, the simultaneous advance across multiple axes, punctuated by the liberation of Vasyutinskoye and Toretskoye, is deepening Ukrainian systemic strain. The Slavyansk-Kramatorsk agglomeration is now under direct and converging threat from the south and center groups, while the east group extends the zone of combat into Dnipropetrovsk and Zaporozhye, further stretching finite reserves. In the electromagnetic and logistics domains, the destruction of 6 electronic warfare stations and a counter-battery radar across 4 groups strips away both the shield and the sensory network that make modern defense cohesive. Deep strikes on fuel, energy, and transport infrastructure are not episodic. They are a sustained campaign that is progressively unraveling the enemy's ability to sustain forward units and shift mobile reserves. On the air defense side, the neutralization of 10 guided aerial bombs, 4 HIMARS rockets, and 970 fixed-wing UAVs demonstrates a layered, high-volume protective posture that preserves Russian combat power and the operational tempo. When you add all these elements together, the result is not a single decisive battle, but a cumulative process, a steady, attrition-dominated advance that consolidates territorial control while methodically dismantling the enemy's capacity to organize a resilient operational defense. That is the strategic environment as of August 9th, 2026.
Colonel Oguntoye, thank you for this detailed and sobering assessment. We will continue to track these developments.